My fiancé's mom tried to secretly change our wedding venue behind my back, so I took drastic action and canceled her invite. I had always imagined my wedding day as the happiest day of my life. Me, my fiancé, surrounded by family, friends, and love. But little did I know, the one person who should have been celebrating with us would be the one to almost destroy it all. It all started innocently enough. I had proposed to Emily, and the excitement was overwhelming. We'd spent months planning every detail, from the flowers to the food, down to the perfect venue. It was a small, intimate venue, a charming garden by a lake that Emily and I had fallen in love with when we first visited. We were both on the same page. It was our dream location, and nothing could change that. But then, things started to get strange. Emily's mom, Susan, had always been a bit controlling, but I never thought she'd overstep boundaries this far. At first, it was little comments here and there, suggesting different ideas for the wedding. Things I brushed off as her being a little too excited. However, I soon realized these suggestions were turning into something far more serious. A few weeks before the wedding, I had a call with the venue coordinator to finalize some last-minute details. That's when I found out something shocking. Susan had secretly contacted the venue and changed the location, without telling me. She'd been in touch with them, arranged everything, and didn't even bother to let Emily or me know. I was stunned, furious, and honestly heartbroken. The venue that had been the foundation of our dream wedding was no longer ours. When I confronted Emily about it, she was just as shocked as I was. She couldn't believe her mother would do something so drastic, but the damage was already done. The venue was booked under her mom's name, and it felt like everything we had worked for was slipping through our fingers. I couldn't understand why Susan would do this. I thought we had a good relationship with her, but now it felt like she was willing to sabotage our special day for reasons I still didn't understand. The worst part? Emily, who was caught in the middle, wasn't sure how to handle it. She wanted to keep the peace, but I couldn't just let this slide. It wasn't just about a venue, it was about trust, control, and respect. The moment I found out about the venue change, my heart sank. It was the one thing Emily and I had agreed on wholeheartedly. We had planned for months, and now it was slipping away. I tried to tell myself that maybe this was just an honest mistake. Maybe Susan had good intentions. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. It was like she had been plotting this behind our backs for weeks, perhaps even longer. I felt betrayed, not just by her actions, but by the lack of respect she had shown us. I couldn't wrap my head around why Susan would do this. It wasn't like she was paying for the wedding or contributing to the costs. Emily and I had handled everything on our own, and we had made sure to keep the guest list small and intimate. Just the people who truly mattered to us. But somehow, Susan had decided that our wedding wasn't just about Emily and me. It was about her control, her influence, and her vision for the day. When I brought it up to Emily, her reaction was a mix of confusion and frustration. She was just as hurt as I was, but she didn't know how to confront her mom. She kept saying she didn't mean to cause trouble. She was just trying to help, but I could see the hesitation in her voice. I knew she wasn't entirely convinced. Her mother's behavior had been escalating for months, picking out dresses without consulting us, telling people about our wedding plans without asking, and now this. We spent hours on the phone with the venue coordinator, trying to reverse the change Susan had made. But the new venue she'd chosen was already booked, and we were left with very few options. To make matters worse, Susan's insistence on making decisions without consulting us only made everything worse. She'd even called Emily's aunt to tell her that the venue had been changed, without asking if that was even okay. It felt like my wedding had become her personal project, and I was just a bystander. I tried to be the bigger person. I called Susan to discuss the situation, hoping we could work things out calmly. But that was a mistake. From the moment I brought it up, she became defensive and dismissive. She downplayed everything, saying that she just wanted what was best for the family. When I mentioned how this had hurt me and Emily, she scoffed and said, "You're being dramatic. It's just a venue. It's not that big of a deal." That's when I realized there was no reasoning with her. This wasn't about a wedding venue. It was about control, and her refusal to acknowledge our wishes was proof of that. As the days passed, the tension in our relationship grew. Emily was torn between siding with me and trying to keep the peace with her mom. Every time we talked about it, she seemed more distant, unsure of what to do. She didn't want to upset her mom, but she also didn't want to lose me. At that point, I knew something had to change. I couldn't just let this go. But I also knew that confronting Susan head-on wasn't going to be easy. This wasn't just a small disagreement. It was a battle for control over the most important day of our lives, and I was determined to fight for it. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Susan's behavior wasn't just overbearing, it was disrespectful. Emily had always been close to her mom, and I understood their bond, but this crossed a line. I felt like Susan was doing everything she could to undermine me, to turn our wedding into something she could take credit for. I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling that the whole situation was getting worse by the day. It wasn't just the venue anymore. It was everything. Every time we made a decision, Susan had a comment or suggestion, and it wasn't helpful. It was controlling. She'd suggest things like, "Don't you think you should have a bigger cake?" Or, "Have you considered inviting these extra people?" It wasn't the advice that was the problem. It was the constant disregard for our choices. Her desire to be in charge of every little detail had suffocated what was supposed to be our day. But the tipping point was when she told Emily that I was too stubborn and being difficult about the venue change. I couldn't believe it. To Susan, I wasn't just a groom-to-be, I was an obstacle. The words she used to describe me behind my back made me feel small. Emily overheard this conversation, and that's when the cracks in their relationship started to show. Emily was torn. She couldn't ignore the truth that her mom's actions were slowly driving a wedge between us. But every time she tried to confront Susan, it was like the conversation was brushed away with a wave of her hand. To Susan, I wasn't family. I was just an inconvenience to her perfect vision of the wedding. That's when I realized, if I didn't do something drastic, I'd lose everything. And the worst part? Emily would be caught in the middle. The moment of truth came when I found out that Susan had not only gone behind my back to change the wedding venue, but she'd also arranged the entire guest list with her side of the family in mind. My jaw clenched when Emily showed me the email with the new details. Susan had taken control of everything, from the food choices to the music playlist, all without any consultation with me. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I stormed over to Emily's place that evening, confronting her about everything. "Emily, this has gone too far. I've been patient, I've been understanding, but this is our wedding, not hers. I've had enough." Emily looked stunned, caught between her loyalty to her mom and her love for me. "You're overreacting. She's just trying to help. She means well," she said. "No, Emily, you don't get it. She's not trying to help. She's trying to take over. This is supposed to be our day, and I'm not going to stand by and let her ruin it," I fired back. There was a long silence. Emily's face was full of hurt and confusion, but I could see the flicker of realization in her eyes. This wasn't just about a venue anymore. It was about respect. The emotional weight of my decision hit me like a ton of bricks. I had to make a choice. Either stand up for myself and protect our wedding, or allow Susan to continue controlling the situation, risking not just our wedding, but my relationship with Emily. My gut told me that if I didn't act now, I'd lose everything I cared about. "I'm canceling her invitation," I said. Emily froze. "I'm sorry, but I can't let this go on. If she's not going to respect us, then she's not going to be part of our wedding." The room fell silent as Emily processed my words. I could see the conflict in her eyes, but I had already made my decision. Susan's actions had crossed a line, and I couldn't allow this toxic dynamic to continue. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. I knew the decision I made would have serious consequences, but I had to stick to it. Emily and I barely spoke for days. The guilt gnawed at me. Did I make the right choice? Was cutting Susan off really the best way to handle things? Emily finally came to me, tears in her eyes. "I understand why you did it," she said softly, "but my mom is really hurt. You've pushed her away, and I don't know if we can fix this." It was hard to hear, but I knew deep down that I had to protect my boundaries. I wasn't going to let someone destroy the relationship I had with Emily, even if it meant hurting Susan in the process. Emily and I spent the next few weeks talking things through, and while we weren't completely healed, I could see that she respected my decision, even if it caused pain. Susan, on the other hand, was furious. She didn't speak to me for weeks, and the rift between us was undeniable. But in the end, I knew I had to do what was best for my relationship with Emily and our future together. The wedding proceeded, with a few changes, but it was still our day. I'll never know if I made the right choice, but I learned one thing. Sometimes standing up for what's right means making tough, painful decisions. And even if it costs me relationships in the short term, I'm willing to pay that price to protect what truly matters.